Goodness to you, my friends. When push comes to shove, what is it that really matters in this life? I'm giving you time to think about it. What is the most important thing for us in this world? Getting out of it with grace and salvation. That has to be the primary, primo goal for every single one of us. Getting to heaven. Once a minister of a small congregation asked his assembled faithful this question. Now, I want all of you who want to get to heaven to move from this side of the church to that side. And they all did. This side was empty, except for one lone individual. The minister asked the gentleman, "Don't you want to get to heaven when you die?" The man responded, "Oh, when you die. I thought you meant today." Funny, humorous though it may seem, that little vignette typifies our society today, doesn't it? We really aren't concerned too much about getting to heaven until we die, or on death's door, then get me everything that you possibly can to assure that destination. If I quizzed you all, I don't believe anyone present here would say or declare that secularization of our faith and our practice of religion is a good thing. Well, what do you mean by secularization? Textbook definition. Secularization is the transformation of a society from close identification with religious values and institutions toward a non-religious or irreligious values. Obviously, this is not a good thing. This robs us of our traditions and our faiths and our beliefs. Because when faith becomes secularized, it's no longer faith, but some sort of practice or system or belief that salves our consciences. And we Americans have always been suspicious of kings ever since we threw one of them off in 1776. But believe it or not, it was the reality of secularization that was the impetus behind the establishment of today's feast. It was Pope Pius XI established the feast of Christ the King in the holy year of 1925, some 90 years ago. Although rooted in ancient devotion, this particular feast appears to have its roots in the 1800s, when many European bishops were worried about what they saw as the rise of secularization in their country at that time. Now, if they thought secularization was bad then, they should see it now. These bishops were especially concerned on how governments were increasingly asserting more power over and against the church. Imagine that. What was true then is even more a threat today. This was especially true in France and Italy. So bishops on their own began venerating Jesus as the universal king. And the devotion took off. In 1922, there was a Eucharistic Congress that was held in Rome. And at that time, some 69 bishops petitioned the Pope to establish the feast of Christ the King. In the following 3 years, the Vatican was flooded with requests for the same feast from people all over Europe, and so by 1925, the solemnity was established. That being said, this solemnity does not have the same meaning for we Americans that it did for the rest of the church. We've been very suspicious of kings since we threw them off in 1776. Kings and queens are not for us, are they? Except for those titles of adored celebrities, the King of Rock, the King of Pop, Queen Latifah, and of course there's always Prince. And we often speak of someone as being a royal pain. I don't know exactly what that means. I guess it depends upon the location of the pain. Back in 1925, Pius XI, it did have a meaning. And that's why he established the Feast of Christ the King. At this time, there were then, as there is now, kings and dictators whose cruelty was hard to believe. So the Pope wanted to set up a counter-royalty, a counter-cultural royalty, in fact, to let them know that they were under judgment, these kings and dictators, as a way to combat secularization of the faith of our church. He wanted to give them a different view of what it meant to be king. Those petitions and those reasons exist still today with regard to cruel monarchs and oppressive dictators. We continue to send the message to the leaders of the world of the model Jesus is for all of us and all those who have the responsibility of governing. Jesus did not have a scepter, but he did have a towel. Jesus did not have people bow to him, but he bowed to others when he washed their feet. Jesus had no army, but he did have disciples. Jesus did not sit upon a throne, but rather the back of a donkey. Jesus wore no crown of gold, but rather one of thorns. Jesus did not take life, but he gave it, and he respected it and made it holy. Jesus did not set limits as to who could be his followers, but was all-inclusive. Laborers and prostitutes, tax collectors, immigrants, migrants, the marginalized, housewives, children, widows, lepers, and the lame, the sick and the wealthy, all were invited to live in his kingdom. Jesus did not exploit people, but spoke with compassion and understanding about widows, mites, and prodigal sons, and good Samaritans, and poor farmers, and rich landowners. Jesus did not wield the sword of condemnation, but showed mercy and forgiveness. Today, you will be with me in paradise. Jesus did not take by force. He called and invited and encouraged his followers to join him. When we properly understand the dangers of secularization, we say, I'm sure we would be universal in saying, we want no part of it. But sad to say, my friends, we are part of the reason. We are part of why. We are part of the contribution to its establishment. Innocently, I think, I know, perhaps, you might wonder how. Well, here are some reminders as to show how we might innocently and unknowingly even perpetuate the idea of secularization of our faith. It might be appropriate here. We contribute to secularization of our faith when we give more importance to the football coach who tells parents and their son needs to memorize plays to be on the team, and the parents agree. But if the school and the faith formation of the church tells parents that their child needs to memorize their prayers or facts about their faith to be a better Catholic before they can make their first communion, there is an outcry of disappointments and disagreements. We contribute to secularization when we adjust our times and schedules because the soccer coach tells us that they need to get their child to team practices 3 times a week, and the parents work their schedules and arrange carpools. But if the parents tell children and themselves that they need to practice the obligation of going to church on Sunday, or to get their child, their altar server child, to practice before a big liturgical celebration, there is a complaint that it is too inconvenient in spite of the fact there may be 7 masses to choose from. We contribute to secularization when we cave in and send out secular Christmas cards and have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman, especially for a religious and holy feast. We contribute to secularization when we arrange our Christmas home parties and office parties during Advent, the season of preparation, which only serves as a distraction from absorbing ourselves in that important celebration when there are 12 days to celebrate Christmas after December 25th. If a school teacher isn't pushing his or her students to read and do math beyond their grade level, then he or she isn't thought to be doing their job. But if a religious education program requires students to know and understand their faith beyond their grade level, then the program is thought to be unreasonable or unrealistic. Those are just some examples how we innocently wonder, do I contribute to the secularization of my faith? Which above those examples reflects our faith and is most helpful for us in that primary goal of getting to heaven? Yes, my friends, we have met the enemy, and it is us. It is we who contribute to secularization. Whenever we allow or permit social demands to conveniences to take precedence over the legitimate practice of our faith. We need to place all demands and activities, goals and ambitions in perspective and in proper priority. By wanting the best our faith can give, not the minimal or the short shrift, not to get in and get out under an hour or best half an hour of Mass. Not just for ourselves we need to do this, but also for our children, our family, our friends. We need to have that faith that will open us up to the solace and the strength that it can give us in reaching our goal. In the long run, when push comes to shove, what is it in life that really matters? To echo my opening question, what is it? Which is it? Who is it that will bring us closer to Christ, enable us to find consolation and strength in our faith, and lead us to know Christ and the abundant, unconditional love that God has for each one of us? That goal supersedes all that the world can offer us. Coming to know Christ and having our focus on heaven. That is what we must pursue. The Feast of Christ the King, though sounding stilted and obsolete to us, is important for us to celebrate because it serves as a reminder that we too should use the attributes of Jesus in our dealings with one another. And we need those reminders in our lives, lest we lose our way by following the lure of what the world thinks we should do. The only question that remains is, will we have the courage and the goodwill to do so? Whether Christ's kingdom succeeds is up to us. It always was and always will be. May the Lord grant you peace in ways that the world cannot. May the Lord grant you peace in ways that the world cannot. Yes, there's a little bit more. Some have said